What if I told you that your soul has not forgotten who it is? It is only waiting for you to remember it. There exists an ancestral technique silenced for centuries, feared by some and guarded by few, a practice so profound that it not only activates ancient memories but awakens sacred codes inscribed in your essence. We are not talking about something you can learn in a book. We are talking about a truth that is recognized from the cells, from the soul. It is not a metaphor. You have lived before. You have felt divinity in your skin. You have walked with wisdom in other times, and that wisdom is still alive within you. But modern life, the constant noise, the collective programming have clouded that memory. They have made you believe that you are only a body, a limited mind, a story with a beginning and an end. But it is not so. This forbidden technique, hidden by religious institutions, marginalized by traditional science, and ridiculed by those who fear what they cannot control, has the power to make you remember who you were and who you are in reality. It is a threshold, a key, a mirror that does not reflect your face, but your eternity. Today here, you are going to cross that threshold. In the next few minutes, I will not only reveal to you what this practice consists of, I will guide you through the memory because the soul does not need to learn, it only needs to awaken. And you would not be here listening to these words if there were not already a flame lit within you. Perhaps you have felt it in dreams, in fleeting visions, in that silent longing you cannot explain. Perhaps you have felt that something in you is asleep but wants to awaken. This video is a bridge to that forgotten truth. And if you truly feel the call, stay until the end, because I will reveal to you step by step how to activate this internal portal and allow what lives beyond time and name to return. Because your soul is not broken or lost, it has only been silenced, but today it will speak. To know that you are ready to remember, tell me in the comments from which country you are watching this video. The journey begins now. Before crossing any spiritual portal, there is something you must understand with absolute clarity. You are not broken, nor empty, nor lost. You are only wrapped by a veil as thin as breath, but as dense as centuries of forgetting. That veil, which some call ego, others system, and others simply reality, is not part of you. It was implanted. It is not evil, it is disconnection. And that veil is the only thing that prevents you from remembering what has always been there. Your true identity. The majority live their entire lives without even suspecting it. They wake up, follow routines, dream within the borders of what they have been told is possible. And when the voice of the soul whispers, they rush to silence it, because it hurts to remember when everything around you insists that you forget. But you are not here by chance. The soul does not seek content, it seeks activation. And if you are listening to these words, it is because something in you is breaking, not in pain, but in revelation. You are crossing the first threshold, the threshold of the inner call. This first step is not external. It is not yet about a technique, a mantra, or a posture. It is a silent surrender, a radical acceptance that there is something more. It is saying to the soul, I am ready, speak to me. And believe me, when you do it with sincerity, the entire universe begins to reconfigure itself. In many ancient traditions, from the Vedas to Gnosticism, they speak of the sacred memory. The Bhagavad Gita calls it the memory of the soul. In the Gnostic texts, Jesus teaches not to believe but to remember. He who knows himself will know the Father, it says in the Gospel of Thomas. It is not dogma, it is activation. And how does that first awakening occur? With signs, not grandiose, not spectacular, but unmistakable. You begin to feel that the everyday world is no longer enough for you. You feel nostalgia for something you cannot name. You see patterns repeating as if they were part of a dream. You perceive that your thoughts create realities, that your emotions shape your body, and that there is an invisible intelligence whispering behind every event. That is the soul calling. And when you hear it, the unveiling begins. You begin to feel not disordered emotions, but a presence, you and there. Right at that crossroads, the need to remember is born. It is as if something inside you were knocking from within the walls of forgetting and shouting, I am here. And here the technique appears, but not as a rigid formula, The forbidden technique that makes your soul remember who you are is, above all, an act of radical presence. It is a way of being that dissolves the veil, and it all begins with silence. Not external silence, but the silence of judgment, the silence of expectation, the silence of the character. When you are in that profound silence, you begin to notice something that was hidden, a frequency that does not come from thought, nor from the body, nor even from emotion. It is a frequency that recognizes you. It does not come from outside, but from the eternal in you. Jacobo Grinberg, one of the most courageous scientists of the 20th century, called it the lattice, a network of consciousness that sustains everything. And he affirmed with total conviction and empirical support that it is possible to enter into direct contact with that network, not through technology, but through the neuronal field modulated by pure intention. In other words, remembering is tuning in. And to tune in, you must use the most powerful instrument you have, your attention. Sustained attention, focused, without effort, that is the first pillar of the technique, because what you observe awakens. That is why when you bring your attention to the heart and remain there without analyzing, without controlling, you will begin to notice what has always been there, a living memory, a voiceless voice, a certainty without explanation. It is your soul activating, and this, although many underestimate it, is the first step of all profound transformation. Surrender to the inner call and the activation of the sacred memory through attention and conscious silence. This is not the end, it is the beginning. The door has been opened. Now that the soul has been summoned from silence, it is time to cross the threshold where ordinary perception dissolves, and what once seemed like imagination is revealed as truth. Because here the technique begins. The one that was silenced, ridiculed, hidden by systems that fear the human being who remembers their power. And what is that forbidden technique? It is a precise combination of three elements: sustained attention, elevated emotion, and coherent visualization. But not as a mechanical routine, it is an internal alchemy. Modern science is beginning to glimpse it. Dr. Joe Dispenza has shown through brain scans and electromagnetic field measurements that a person in a state of profound heart coherence, that is, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually aligned, can alter their biology, their environment, and even manifest new realities from the quantum field. But what does this mean in terms of the soul? It means that when you unite your mental intention, what you choose to see with an elevated emotion, what you choose to feel, and maintain it in a field of deep attention, what you are doing is tuning into the deepest truth of your being. You are igniting the dormant memories that lie in your energy field. This technique was practiced in essence by the ancient Egyptians in the mystery schools, by the tantric yogis, by the hermetic sages, and by the Gnostic mystics. It was not about automatic prayers or empty rituals. It was a spiritual science. Imagine this: you sitting in silence, with your spine straight, hands on your chest, breathing deeply and placing your attention on your heart. You feel it beating, how it expands, how it lights up with a subtle energy. Then you begin to evoke an emotion: gratitude, love, compassion, not as a thought, but as a current that runs through everything. And then, when that emotion floods your body, you visualize, but here is the secret. You do not visualize what you desire to have, but what you are when you already have it. You do not see the future as something distant. You embody it as an absolute present. If your soul is free, you visualize yourself living that freedom. If your soul is abundance, you feel yourself being that abundance. It is not about asking the universe. It is about remembering that you are the universe asking itself. This is the second step of the technique, the activation of quantum memory. And here a forgotten law comes into play, the law of inner coherence. When your thought, your emotion, and your intention are aligned, a magnetic field so powerful is created that it literally begins to modify the quantum field around you. This is not a theory. The Heart Math Institute has proven it scientifically. The human heart generates a field thousands of times more powerful than that of the brain. And when you enter heart coherence, that field expands and harmonizes everything around it. And do you know what happens when you sustain that practice for days, weeks, months? Your perception begins to change. But not only that, your identity begins to disintegrate, not the soul, but the character, what you thought you were. Your limitations, your traumas, your labels begin to dissolve like shadows at dawn. It is then that the true self appears, not as an idea, but as a presence. You cannot define it, you cannot explain it, but you feel it. You are remembering who you are. And that memory, that certainty, is the true forbidden technique. Because the soul that remembers can no longer be controlled. The soul that remembers acts from freedom, loves without fear, creates without limits, and its mere presence transforms the space where it is. This second step is a practice. It is not enough to understand it. You have to live it. Dedicate 5 minutes each day to this tuning. Attention to the heart, elevated emotion, coherent visualization. And you will see how the veil falls layer by layer. You will see how the world no longer seems like a prison, but a mirror. And in that mirror, you will see your true face, the one that was always there behind all the masks, the soul that has awakened again. You have felt the vibration. You have crossed the threshold. You have begun to remember. And now what follows? When the soul awakens, nothing remains the same. What once seemed important fades away: social masks, imposed goals, the need for validation. Everything begins to lose meaning, because when you remember who you are, you no longer live from lack, but from truth, from the source. This is the third and final step of the technique, the conscious embodiment of the remembered soul. It is not enough to have a moment of clarity. It is not enough to feel the connection once. The true power lies in bringing that higher consciousness to every daily act. That is the most difficult initiation, but also the most transformative, living as if the soul were guiding every step. This is what the great avatars of history taught. Jesus did not come to found a religion. He came to embody Christ consciousness. Buddha did not come to philosophize. He came to show that the mind can be silenced. Krishna did not come to talk about duty, but to reveal that every action can be offered to the soul. They all remembered, and you are here. This is where the forbidden technique reaches its climax, because the true secret is not in visualization or even in energetic activation. The true secret is this: live as if you were already the soul that remembers being. Speak like it, love like it, decide like it. Relate to the world as the being that inhabits your center would. That eternal being that needs no approval or permission because it is already whole. But beware, at first, this awakening may feel like an earthquake. Your environment may resist. People who still live asleep may distrust, not because they hate you, but because your light confronts their shadows, and that hurts. But do not fear, because that same light, if you keep it lit, ends up illuminating even the darkest corners of the world. Here is the great twist. By remembering who you are, the soul begins to emit a unique frequency. That frequency acts like a magnet. It attracts other awakened souls, repels what no longer vibrates with you, and above all, begins to rewrite your reality, not from the ego, but from coherence. Opportunities you did not seek with the mind begin to arrive. Paths open where there were walls before. A peace arises that does not depend on anything external, and the magic that seemed like a myth begins to manifest naturally. This is what Jacobo Grinberg described as the structure of reality modified by conscious perception. It is not a fantasy, it is applied spiritual science. Now listen closely. The soul that remembers does not become perfect, it becomes real. It cries, but from compassion. It falls, but from humility. It loves, but without possessing. It serves, but without sacrificing itself. And that way of being in the world is, in itself, a technique of transformation. Because you are not here only to awaken, you are here to be a catalyst for collective awakening. Every time you choose from the soul, you are affecting the quantum field of everyone around you. It is as if your choices left a luminous footprint in the invisible fabric of reality, and others, even without knowing it, follow it. That is why this third step is not the end. It is the beginning of a new way of living, a way in which you no longer seek to be someone, because you know that you already are. You are already love, you are already light, you are already wisdom, you only need to remember it and live it. And if you have come this far, it is not by chance. It is because your soul already knew, because something inside you is ready to embody that memory. And if all this resonated with you, tell me in the comments what your soul remembered today. And if you want to continue exploring these mysteries, subscribe. Here we continue walking together, step by step, toward the deepest truth. Throughout this journey, we have unearthed a truth that has always been there, waiting, not in books, not in temples, not in the words of another, but in you, in the silent core of your being. Remembering who you are is not an intellectual acquisition, it is a living revelation. It is as if within your soul there existed an eternal seed that, upon receiving the light of consciousness, begins to germinate, not to become something new but to return to what it always was. Perhaps as you listened, something stirred within you, an ancient emotion, a fleeting image, an inexplicable certainty. Perhaps you cannot put it into words, but you know that what you felt is real, and that is already a miracle, because we live in a world that has trained us to forget. From a young age, they teach us to distrust our intuition, to seek external validation, to define ourselves by what we do or by what others say we are. But there comes a moment when that game breaks, and in that break, the soul begins to whisper. The technique you have discovered today is not magical. It is more powerful than that because it does not depend on anyone else. It does not need complex rituals or sacred permissions. It only needs you, your presence, your honesty, your pure intention to return to yourself. Remembering who you really are is the most revolutionary act you can do in this life, because once you do it, you no longer live out of fear, but out of purpose. You no longer act out of need, but out of coherence. You no longer love from emptiness, but from fullness. This is the moment when you must choose, not with anxiety, not with haste, but with reverence. Will you continue living as a character, or will you awaken as the soul you incarnated to be? Remember, darkness is not fought, it is illuminated. Confusion is not resolved, it dissolves in presence. And forgetting is not punished, it is redeemed with remembrance. Every day that you choose to speak to yourself with love, to visualize your truth, to activate your energy, and to walk with consciousness, you are rewriting your story, not the story of the small self, but that of the eternal being who came to this world to embody the light. You do not need anyone else to confirm it. Your soul already knows, and now you do too. With that said, thank you for watching, and until next time.